of eternity and nowhere to unwind. Hobgoblins and Morris men find in the streets. Our continual breakdown, give them lightning. Waiting on the corner for the Swiss guy to arrive. And when they do, we'll battle them and rattle them. Hammer versus mind. Versus mind. Once more, onto the breach. Like the Gutenberg Bible.
Welcome to the social-engineer.org podcast number 66.
66?
66.
You're keeping us Motley Crue together this whole time. That's pretty impressive, dude.
Well,
when I say Motley Crue, there's one person that decided to skip today completely, which is Ping.
And Jordan.
And well, that's to be without said. But Ping, on the other hand, she always complains that I'm never on. I just want to throw out there today that she is not on and totally ditched us as a family.
Ping put work before us.
I don't know who would do that. I'm supposed to be on 2 conference calls right now, and I skipped them.
Okay, to any of Dave's clients that are listening, we're sorry.
I, for one, am sad that Ping isn't here.
So what I was going to do is I was going to talk in Ping's voice. Like, this is my Ping voice.
That does not sound...
I'll pretend to be Ping, and then we'll pretend that she's still here.
You don't sound anything like Ping.
No. Ping does not have a super high-pitched voice.
That's true.
She really doesn't.
We need to get a Ping soundboard so we can pretend that she's here. Clip everything out.
A Ping soundboard would be just things like, dude, I'll kill you. You're the dumbest person that ever lived. Things like
absolutely.
that.
But it would be amazing because we could probably do an entire podcast with people thinking that she's there, but really not.
But, then during the podcast, she usually asks like a couple really, really intelligent questions.
So what would be funny is if we take the questions that she's asked previously and try to play over something that has no relevance whatsoever to the talk that we're doing.
So, like when Ping's asking, how does social media affect each and every person? And we're talking about, I don't know, the breach of major companies.
Malware or something like that.
Ping, are you listening to this?
We love you, Ping. We love you, Ping.
We love you.
I'm going to take that on my things to do because I think that would be amazing to go through the Social Engineer podcast and splice up Ping comments and then just have her talk the whole time when she's not there.
That would be kind of interesting. Yeah, you should definitely make a Ping soundboard.
Right. I'm going to try that. And I mean, we already know that. I mean, there's times where she's been like really upset that I'm playing Bruce Hornsby. So when I play Bruce Hornsby, like we could have her saying, "Do you really need to play Bruce Hornsby?" Like I can have be part of it,
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Is that really your favorite song of all time?
It's pretty close to it.
Really?
Pretty close to it. I got a few songs, but that one, it just brings me happy.
Let me translate what Michelle really meant. Are you really that lame?
Well, yeah.
I've just never met a Bruce Hornsby fan.
Well, because there's none out there besides Bruce himself.
But anyways, back to the podcast.
Yes, if we can talk about what we got going on, which is a ton, right?
A ton, yes.
By the time this podcast comes out, which will be February, I think,
number 66.
February 16th. The very next week, we will be in Orlando. Training.
Country?
5-day class.
5-day class, APSE, 23 through 27. And then we did something super cool, Dave. I'm a good leader like that.
Yeah? What's the cool thing?
We have Deviant coming down on March 2nd and 3rd and running a core physical penetration testing class for my whole team.
Awesome. That's great, dude. And you got one of the best. Well, the best.
Yeah. I mean, he is the best. And he's coming down. We're going to make it a public class so other people can sign up. So if you're interested, you can ping me or go to the core site and you can get in on the class. Nothing to do.
Are pants optional?
Pants are not optional. You must wear them.
Okay, then I can't go.
Yeah, I agree. You shouldn't come. Pants are definitely not optional. But that's exciting. Yeah, I'm excited about that. So we have that. And we have Bristol in May. If you're interested in coming to the beautiful area of the UK, Bristol in May. What is that? 11 through 15 in May. You can come out there. And then our next public class that we can announce is in Baltimore, all the way in, October? that what it is? October 5 through 9. So that's a public class. We have an OSI class we just got done. We're almost done writing, I should say, almost done. And that will be launched soon. I'm not gonna say where or when.
That's the word, soon.
Soon. So all the people have been emailing me saying when can we get it? Soon is the answer. We finally put the final touches on our book. Dave, thank you for being our technical editor.
Yes, thank you, Dave.
Yep.
To be perfectly honest, that was actually a really fun process. Just not necessarily the deadlines, because you know how I do with deadlines, but
it's not too good.
The actual process of reading through the book and making sure everything kind of flowed and fit correctly, I really had a fun time with it. So thanks for having me on. And it's actually, I wasn't going to tell you this, but it's actually a really good book. And I really enjoyed it.
I wasn't going to tell you this. Isn't that like horrible?
Giving you a compliment on something, but it was actually well done, and I learned some stuff from it. So a lot of stuff. And so I didn't really want to get into this. It's a little weird, so I'm going to start playing Mandolin Rain now.
Well, what I'm going to say, because I have no problem complimenting people, is there was a couple times, actually more than a handful of times throughout the book that you caught some things and helped us make sure that we were 100% accurate. That's why when they asked us, like, who can be your technical editor? Who can call you out if you say something not correct? Get it right. And both of us were like, yeah, Dave. Dave's the guy. April, it's printed in April, and it will be out beginning of April. So, Michelle and I also got invited to speak at RSA, which makes Dave really happy. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. But anyhow, we'll be out there. We won't spend too much time on that. We don't want. But we're going to be out there in April, and we have a couple other big things that we may announce about going out there. So we'll talk about that later on. Now, of course, we don't want to bypass our busy year because we're talking, like 3 or 4 trainings coming up, OSI training, the book release, speeches, conferences. We'll be out at Black Hat. We'll be at a DEF CON. We're about to announce the CTF, and where our village is going to have a call for papers at DEF CON. We got a bunch of new competitions and other things for DEF CON that we're going to do out there. And then it's like we come home and go into a coma for 2 weeks, and then we pick right back up and we go to DerbyCon. So, Dave, what are the dates, the official dates for the Derb?
DerbyCon is from this year to last year, is going to be the same dates as before. When I say same dates, it's always the last weekend in September. So it's going to be, so September 23rd and 24th, and then 25th, 26th, 27th is the conference dates. So that ends up being a Wednesday, Thursday of the conference itself, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday is the conference. So we have a really good lineup already. We're already starting to get the planning done. We actually have a meeting tonight with the whole DerbyCon crew going over next year. We're already going through the website design stuff and everything else. So it should be a lot of fun. And this year we're definitely looking at keeping it fun and exciting from what we had last year. Last year was amazing.
And how are you going to beat infected mushroom?
That's, we're in discussions of that right now. We got a couple possible really cool leads. We're definitely pushing the buttons right now to see if we can get somebody booked this year in something that's super, super cool.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. I love DerbyCon. So even though, according to the polygraph, you love DEF CON more.
That's how I can tell those things are totally fake, by the way. Just throwing it out there.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Shit, nice job on that.
Thanks, man. So, but let's talk about the topic for today, because let me back up just a second and talk about where we're at in corporate America. Last year, it seemed like every week there was another breach. And I don't think I'm even exaggerating with that. I think it really was like every week there was some kind of breach, whether it was something small in healthcare or something huge like Target or Home Depot or Sony or something like that, or Staples. And it just seemed to escalate throughout the year and get worse and worse and worse. So, of course, we talk about it all the time. All joking aside, it's just a mess to look at what's happening and what kind of things can be done to fix it. So what we did is we went out and we talked to some people that we know within some of these large organizations. And we actually got the VP of one of the red teams of a very large company that was breached last year, who got approval to come on the podcast and talk about the breach. Now, par for the course, right before we had everything set up, the lawyers got a little nervous. and they don't want us to mention the company name or specific details about the company. So we're not going to do that. We're going to honor that request because we're not about making people, embarrassing people or people losing their jobs, of course. So
do we call him like he who may not be named?
We're going to call him Jeff today.
Jeff. Okay.
Jeff will be his name that we will call him. And hopefully we won't have any.
Is Jeff like Bruce Hornsby by any chance? I'm just curious.
Jeff, maybe we can even ask him if we can call him Bruce.
Dude, that would make my day.
We'll ask him. Let's get him on, and we'll see, and then we'll talk about the breach, some of the details. We'll try to get as specific as we can without giving it away. And the big take we want to get from this is what can we learn? What can be done? We preach it, but let's hear it from the mouth of someone who was in the belly of the beast having to deal with it. And let's see what can be done to not be the next headline. So let me get Jeff/Bruce on, and we'll start that conversation. So we have Jeff on, who we now have renamed Bruce for Dave's sake. So Bruce,
I appreciate you, Bruce, for changing your name.
Yeah, not a problem.
Bruce, we love having you on. Thanks for giving us the time today to talk about this.
Absolutely, thank you.
So probably the biggest question to start with is can you tell us a little bit about the breach?
Like the initial sort of what happened, if you can do that without giving away.
So just kind of generically, the initial discovery was actually just kind of made by some routine checking into normal system use, and something one of our employees, just something didn't seem quite right, and he just started asking some questions. And then we also had some outside sources almost simultaneously coming at us saying, hey, we're seeing some information out that looks like you guys may have suffered a breach. And some quick digging and some phone calls with the Secret Service and other three-letter agencies got the ball rolling on that, and then it was all hands on deck at that point. So we had a pretty short window from actual breach to discovery, which is really nice when you realize that you weren't 200 days into a breach or something like that, and you're just realizing it. So that was probably the biggest sigh that you could have at that particular point. But yeah, from that moment on, it was just kind of all hands on deck. But yeah, routine check into some normal system usage. Just started asking some questions, and before you know it, here we go.
I have a whole set of questions that I want to ask here. I'm really curious because when you handle an incident, it gets pretty hectic and crazy. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of like how crazy it was in dealing with it, and like just from folks that are in the security industry that maybe never experienced a breach before in the past, just like what you're getting from upper management and just the general dynamics of how you work as a team and trying to resolve it, and what you're doing as an organization. I think that might help out some folks.
No, absolutely. So the first thing that kind of set in our scenario was there's just obviously a lot of panic. People start rushing around and trying to figure out, what is their involvement in this scenario? What am I going to have to answer to? What am I going to have to do to fix this? That kind of thing. And one of the things that I started seeing there that was a little bit, you start kind of wondering, what can we do about this? Is that all that energy is appropriate and works great to helping resolve this kind of situation, but ensuring that energy is focused is very critical. Early on, we kind of discovered that having 1,000 people running in 1,000 different directions, while we were discovering a lot and learning a lot and getting a lot of information, that we had no capability to actually deal with and process that information. And we were getting duplicates and triplicates and even more so in some cases of the same kind of information. So yeah, the reaction, as you can imagine, is there's definitely that sense of panic, and everyone kind of starts to scramble, and being able to focus that energy and get it, once we started doing that, it was like, okay, now things are starting to click. Situations that we had struggled with in the past and getting things completed from point A to point, Z, were happening in significantly truncated timetables. We started actually getting stuff done that we had been planning on for years and years and years now. Obviously, a lot of that is that, your organization is in panic mode and whatnot, and that's not necessarily going to be the status quo when you're moving into that more strategic direction and whatnot.
To Dave's point, is there a time during that, like when you're doing this whole incident response, where you finally feel, hey, we got a handle on it, like we know? Because I'm trying to imagine, you get a little glimmer that, hey, I think we've been breached. Now you're trying to find out the details. Is it true? How did it happen?
Right.
How far did they get? Is there a time during that whole response effort where you're going, okay, yep, we got it nailed. We know how it happened. Now we can start fixing? Or is there always doubt?
And it's exactly that. I think there's always some doubt, but when you're able to put together what happened, put the timeline together from point A to point Z and everything that happened in between. Okay, what was the initial penetration? Okay, where did they go from there? And then how did they get, so on and so forth. And when you can actually trace that from the end point of the compromise back to the source, obviously can't necessarily always go out and get the actual person, but when you realize when that initial penetration happened to all the way through your infrastructure, that I think is when you kind of get that reassurance where you're like, okay, now we have a clear picture of what actually happened. Now let's start focusing on some more of the details of why this happened.
So at what point did you feel that sort of mind-numbing terror? Was it initially, or was it after you had the full picture?
For me, it was, I had actually, the funny thing for me is I was on vacation. And the day I got back from vacation, I came in super early and my coworker came up to me and was like, dude, did you hear? And this is like 6:45 in the morning. And this guy never showed up before 9 o'clock. And all of a sudden he's in the office asking me, dude, did you hear? And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've been off the grid for the last 2 weeks. What's going on? And when I got sat down, started getting told, what had happened and what the initial scope was of the incident, it was like, well, my life as I know it just ended, and that was when the weekend work starts, the long hours and everything like that. And that was kind of my terror, and that was completely selfish. It was just more of, I understand that this is going to significantly impact me now.
Now, from a perspective of when it actually happened, I'm sure everybody's running around crazy and everything else, but, would you say that you learned a significant amount of how to handle security threats during this period of time, like ways to reduce it in the future, things like that? Like, what were your learning objectives afterwards?
So it was a very eye-opening experience. It showed us that our perceived level of security maturity was very grossly overrated. We had a degree of assurance that we had internally with the majority of our staff and everything. And when this happened and we started lifting up the carpets and we started opening the closets and we started looking around, as we started to truly realize that we were not nearly as secure as we wanted to be and how we had perceived ourselves. The organization of the size of the one I'm in, when you get to that size, there's a lot of moving parts, and when there is been, I don't want to say a lack of due diligence, but just a lack of insight into what environment you're actually working with. When you don't have that insight and then something like this happens and then you make an effort to start understanding your environment, that's when you kind of realize, wow, we've really been missing some of the low-hanging fruit that we should have identified a long time ago.
How do you fix that, though? How do you go from what you're saying? It sounds like a whole culture issue. How do you then go forward fixing that so it doesn't happen again?
It's painful, and we're still going through it right now. And it's when you come to that realization, it's incredibly painful. You have various groups that, through no fault of their own, or maybe some fault of their own, you don't really know, because the low-hanging fruit that you're discovering and the issues that you're discovering, and some of the complacency, nobody wants to have the finger pointed at them. So not only do you have a lot of people panicking because they're realizing that, their whole world is going to change because there's going to be this push for security, and that's going to change the way people are doing things and have been doing them for years. You get pushback from portions of your organization that don't want to do that. You have pieces of your organization that are very excited, and it's just it's an absolute cluster, to be honest, and initially it's absolutely painful, but we had the fortunate opportunity to get some new people with very strong security backgrounds and who have worked in this kind of situation before, and able to understand and realize that this, culture turmoil and just mess was going on, and be able to just say, okay, we're going to be very tactical about this. Okay, we are going to take the top 5 things. Everyone's going to focus on this. Now, this is coming down from executive management. Okay, this is what you're focused on. And so getting people, instead of having that organization, everyone panicking and scrambling and running around trying to not only fix things, but this is also a prime opportunity for people to be like, hey, I've been saying this all along, so I want to jump in here and do some great things. And having your executive management support to come in and help focus that energy and be like, okay, bang, here's our top 5 priorities. Let's start focusing on this. You start getting your team more cohesive. Everyone starts kind of coming back together and moving in that same direction, and you start making things happen, and they start happening faster and faster and faster. But there's no way around it. It's painful. It's very, very painful.
Yeah, I have a question on this. So how long were you there prior to the breach actually occurring, you could say?
I was about 3 years prior.
Okay, so for 3 years, you have a good understanding of where the security program was at and kind of where you're going. I gave a talk a couple of years ago on one of the best things that can happen to a company is experiencing a breach. Now, obviously, that's a terrible thing to say. And depending on how impactful it is to the company, can be very disastrous. Would you agree that moving forward after the breach, that security being a major driver has completely shifted more towards being integrated into the business than it ever has been prior to the breach occurring?
Absolutely. I mean, that's absolutely something that we're seeing now. And prior to the breach, there were a lot of people, my peers and everything within the organization. We said, we need to be moving forward in security, and we cannot continue to be complacent. We cannot continue to worry about checking the boxes for compliance issues and things like that, and just making sure that we're, doing the bare minimums and everything. And then when this breach happened, we always maintained a mentality of it's never a matter of if, it's always a matter of when. It's like you just need to expect it and prepare for it, and always be thinking that way. And right. After the breach, exactly to your point, that it's a kick in the head. It shifts your focus immediately out of necessity more than wanting to do that. And it's dirty, it's painful, it's ugly, but it's in the security space. I'll tell you, it's one of the best times to be in security in my particular organization, just because of this whole push and everything like that. You get some people who are just like, I just can't take it anymore, and you'll have people that jump ship. But at the same time, it's an experience to go through. And if you've ever been part of a massive, large scale breach and been on the front lines of it, it's very rewarding. It's stressful as hell. I'm not going to lie, But yeah. At the same time, it's really exciting and to be a part of. It's ups and downs, but it's for the organization, absolutely a push directly in the direction we needed to go.
And how do you keep it going? Like sometimes what we find is company gets breached, and like you said, they're all gung ho, but now a year passes and
right.
Things kind of start settling back in. So what would be your suggestions to companies who are listening to this, to say, here's how we keep that motivation going, because you don't want to lose it and then end up being in a case, with, we won't say company names, but, where you're getting breached multiple times in just a few years.
Yep. No, absolutely. And, and that's a great question. In my experience right now, the drive has still been very much strong going forward. Still a lot of people that were involved in the breach, still driving forward, still excited to come in and work on these new initiatives. So, right now we've had no issues so far with it fading, but I think ensuring that you understand the difference between being tactical in an organization versus being strategic in an organization, and how both of those two things need to happen. And then if you're in that breached environment, you have to be tactical, but you have to not only be tactical, you have to be planning for that strategy. You're being tactical. It's not a long-term solution. You have to be able to make that segue comfortably into the strategic direction and maintaining, what you've accomplished this far.
When I was, I used to be the chief security officer of a Diebold, and I came in to Diebold after the whole voting machine issue. So, publicly putting, source code on externally facing FTP sites, and,
right.
not embedding security in any way, shape, or form into the voting machines. And the company itself was experiencing a number of issues as a whole. And it was really unique for me because I was able to come in and really get away with a lot of things that I would say is pretty abnormal, implementing NAC globally and just redesigning application security programs and getting, a team of like 50 people on my staff. Those are things that I would not have been able to do unless the company hadn't already experienced a significant amount of pain around security. And
Right.
you look at companies that come out much better in most cases in the long run. And I think, if you look at the dynamics of that, it really has to do with, executives don't want to be in the news. The executives don't want to, have their name and brand tarnished, or, things that happen with, IP getting leaked. There's a lot of different reasons for that. And I think, going through that, you come through a lot stronger. I don't know about you, but I mean, like implementing things that may have an impact on the company were really easy for me to implement there. Do you have the same thing?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, it's almost. I actually asked the question of my manager. I said he came in, and this was a month or so after the breach, and he came in and said, I need you guys to, going forward, need you to put together, what do you guys need for software, tools, hardware, all that kind of stuff. And I said, well, what's our budget? He's just like, you pretty much have a blank check at this point. I'm sitting there, a security geek, and I'm just kind of like, no, shut up. You are got to be kidding me. Like, oh, okay, so it's kid in a candy store at that point. And, I'm going to say that with a grain of salt, just because as much as I was a kid in a candy store, I've also, been in situations where I've seen the technology addiction in organizations, and it's like, you don't want to be that guy who's, you don't want to be the dealer on the corner. Like, yeah, man.
I'm air fist bumping you right now. You can't see me air fist bumping you right now.
That's a great statement, because we actually had that in another situation with another client after a breach, and they get this, big fat check, let's say internal check, and they spend it on every piece of technological hardware they can possibly put in place.
Yep.
No training, no security awareness, no, the real root of the problem being an attack that involved phishing and vishing. Nothing to do about that. Let's just throw some more firewalls and some, inspection, packet inspection systems, and that will cure the problem. So what you just said, yeah, Dave and I are Wonder Twin powering fist bumping you in the air right now.
Awesome. And kind of a caveat of that too is understand, one thing that we needed to also do is understand, okay, so, we've been technology addicts, and now we got a closet full of stuff. And so now we have new needs with these, security initiatives going forward and everything like that. And so it's sometimes you don't want to go look in the closet, but it's always like, look at what you've got in your organization for tools and everything like that. Where's your overlap? How many tools, like if you have a niche need, look at what you've got already to see, is there a way that we can fill this need, with the infrastructure that we got? Maybe you can't, but, I've seen, and not just my current organization, but I've seen multiple organizations in my career who it's just like, we need this very specific type of logging and monitoring. So it's like, we're going to go spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a solution that, while that is a component of that solution, it's not necessarily what it's for. But then you get all this overlap, and it's that technology addiction. So
there was one case we were dealing with a customer that experienced one, and out of the reports and the communications that I gave was, listen, the last thing you want to do is buy a SIM right now. Like, you don't have the staffing, you don't have the maturity for it. I'm like, you need to focus on these areas first as a program, and then because they really wanted to buy a SIM at the time. What they did is they went and bought a SIM, like literally right after my presentation, and implemented it and had no one to staff it. And, they're no better off than they were before in the past. They're all overloaded. They don't have enough people to support the technology. And that's a major concern. So it's really good to hear. I mean, from a breach perspective, not moving down the path of just implementing technology to try to solve a specific, issue. It's, I always like to use the term, security is a social issue. It is not a technology problem.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
And every now and then, Dave says something that just makes me love him. Every now and then, it's like 90% of what comes out of his mouth, I'm like covering my ears and running away. And then he says something and I just have a tear in my eye.
Nice.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's quite all right.
Looking back, I have a quick question.
Sure.
What are you most happy about in how your team responded with? Because none of us really know how we're going to respond in any given emergency until it happens. So, in looking back, what are you most proud of, or what are you happiest with, or what do you think your organization did the most well?
So my team, I was very proud of the fact that my team came in and did what they do best. They were highly adaptable, highly technically knowledgeable, and were able to assist in multiple areas of during the investigation. They were sitting down with assisting, various other contractors that have been brought in, helping the work that they're doing go faster by not only offering our expertise within and knowledge within the environment that we're in, but also just being able to, help them, if it was, hey, we're going to be doing vulnerability scanning, it's like, okay, so we're going to be scanning 16 million IP addresses. Okay, I'll put on a pot of coffee. Let's do this. Even my team, that's not normally what they're doing, but at the same time, we were able to come in and just be like, yeah, we will go take care of this, and we can come over in here and help with some forensic analysis. You guys need some malware analysis too? Yep, we can help with that as well. So just being able to, my team coming in and being able to be that adaptable and help out in various parts of the organization, personally for me, that was a huge success for my team. And then the organization, just the level of support that we've gotten now from executive leadership and everything, and driving security forward. I think a frustration personally, and I know other peers of mine have experienced, is a lot of the time you feel a little neglected in your organization because you're being asked your opinion all the time, and you're saying, hey, I think we need to do this and this and this and this. You're paying me to tell you this stuff, and here we are. And it seems like nobody's listening a lot of the time. And now, in this post-breach environment, that's not really the case. The people are coming to the people who have been there for, in some cases, more than a decade, and really relying on these people to provide expert level knowledge, and so just the support and everything from executive management and from the organization as a whole has been amazing.
One of the questions I have, so I'll caveat this with historically what I see for when breaches happen, and a lot of times you've seen a lot of large breaches when they appear in the media. The security industry, I think traditionally, and I was guilty of this probably 4 or 5 years ago, but I stopped because I realized that every organization has an exposure. Every organization is going to experience a breach. It's just a matter of whether or not they detected it yet or not. What was your perspective of how the media handled, and maybe not just the media, but also like the InfoSec community? Because from my perspective, when you see a breach occur, I'm in the media a lot talking about different breaches and things like that, but I make it a point to never critique a company about their security program or talk to them and down to them in some ways that it was their fault that this happened or anything like that, because I realize the challenges and hurdles that we face in InfoSec. But what was your perspective from, I guess, generally, from the community or the news or anything like that you can at least comment on about your perception of what that was and kind of, getting hit from all directions?
Yeah. So immediately afterwards, obviously, the organization gets flooded with, people wanting to know a bunch of information and know exactly what's happening. And then I of course, paying attention to the news and everything, seeing what the media is saying. It's just kind of like, wow, the truth is always out there. I mean, it literally is. I mean, it's just buried, about stacks and stacks of other garbage that, gets thrown out there too. So, I think in our particular case, there was a lot of that, there's a lot of speculation in the security community as to what happened, and there was again a little bit of truth in everything, but professionally it's frustrating. It's almost like somebody's talking bad about your child at that point. You take it, you can sometimes start taking it a little bit personally, but I think that the best way to handle that, and this is something that I can't really say that I've seen an overabundance of in the security community, is I think coming clean and making a proactive statement to not only your customers, your partners, your investors, whoever, everyone, and just kind of a more of a full disclosure kind of scenario. Now, obviously, companies don't want to do that. They get afraid, the lawsuits and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying I have a solution for it. I'm just saying I think that I know an example I know of is RSA. When they were breached, we actually got to sit down with some of their executive leadership and speak with them about, what had happened. And I know that they had gone public and talked about it very openly. And I think that mentality is really hard to get across, especially in some more competitive sectors and whatnot. So, as far as our situation, I think that, again, the media did exactly what they did with it. Here's what happened. Here's what we know. But a lot of speculation happened in our case. And not being a PR guy, I have no idea how our teams handled, dealing with all the speculation. But yeah, it's frustrating.
From that perspective too, long-term effects. Did the breach have long-term effects on your company? And have you fully recovered from it, I guess is the best way to put it.
I can say from my perspective that we are definitely on the right path. As far as the company as a whole, that's not something I can speak intelligently to because I have no idea.
Sure.
I know that there's you're going to have all the legal and media battles and everything else are still ongoing. So
from a security perspective, you feel that you guys are definitely moving forward and you're getting past this part of history.
Yes, we have in our security group, a very tight-knit group that's constantly talking to each other. It doesn't consume us. Obviously, we get nervous, during various times and whatnot. And when you hear about new 0 days coming out and stuff like that, there's a little bit of an initial panic. Then there's a lot of reaction that happens into seeing like, okay, are we good from this? Like a prime example, Heartbleed comes out and it's like, oh my God, we have to look at this like right now. Like everything else is on hold. Like we can't have another breach, So let's everyone focus on this. So there's lasting scars for sure. There's obviously lasting scars, but we are definitely headed in the right direction and very, very, very positive.
If you can give, I don't want to limit you to 1, 2, or 3. So whatever it is, if you can give a small list of advice to any company listening. And let's say this first list of advice is pre-breach. So you haven't been breached and you don't want to be breached. What would be your suggestion to them to not be the next headline?
So this is going to sound very rudimentary, but it's something I have struggled with throughout my career, and it's getting people and organizations understand one thing above all: security is the safe. Know what you're putting in the safe. It's like you need to understand your environment. You need to know what's out there. You need to know what your data classifications are. You need to know what kind of information you're dealing with. It sounds like security 101, if that even. But the reality is I see that all the time. I see organizations that, okay, a breach happened. Okay, now we have to figure out what other areas can we be exposed to. It's like, well, that should be known to you. Know your environment. Know yourself. That's the first thing that you need to do. If you don't even know what you have, you don't even know what safe to put it in and how many doors and locks to put it behind and whatnot. You have to have that kind of self-awareness as an organization, first of all.
So let me stop you there before you go on. Let me play devil's advocate. Now, let's talk about companies that have thousands of employees and maybe hundreds or even more locations around the U.S. or the globe. How do you do what you just said? How do you encourage a company to do that?
No, absolutely. If it's not something that has been baked into your organization more or less since the inception of your organization, you're going to have a very painful experience initially. I mean, there's no two ways about it. And I can't think of, off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone who's just, nailed it 100%. But you're going to need to do that discovery. Even if you're a huge organization, trust me, we've done it. You have to do that discovery, go out there, and you have to figure out exactly, okay, what are all the little widgets that we have? What are all of our little bells and whistles that, I'm a security guy and I have to, and, all of a sudden, I'm switching my mindset into, okay, what is the marketing team doing? I need to understand that. In my past, I never would have thought about that, but this is one of those things that really brought it into the forefront of my mind. And so you're going to have that painful discovery phase, and it's just going to be like, what do you mean this has been out here for 20 years and nobody's used it? How has that happened? So once you start understanding that and, going through that discovery piece and everything, you start to understand what it is your organization is going to need to do now to keep a very good track of what are we exposing? What are we doing here? What is our footprint? What does our digital presence look like these days? And you get to that point and then it's about maintaining, stay the course. Then, when new things happen, then, you have policies and procedures in place that are communicated effectively. And it's, again, I know I can hear myself talking and it's just like, man, this is like security basics 101 in it, but it's so fundamentally important because, once that breach happens, man, when you're scrambling to figure out what else it is out there that you didn't know about, that's been out there forever, and you have no clue what your exposure is, that is not a comfortable position to be in.
So let me open this up, not just to you, Bruce, but I'd like Dave and Michelle's opinion on this too, because Michelle and I deal with this in our company, where you get a company that you're working with and they get spanked by a fish, and let's just say it wasn't terrible, but there was some embarrassment, there was some minor breach, it was fixed, but now the guy in the higher up who doesn't really know anything about security or technology or training, his policy he wants to pass is no one's ever allowed on social media ever again inside the company, right? Now, some people that may work, but then others, they use it for their job. So now they find ways around that policy. So how do you do what you said? How do you get an organization that's huge to make policies that protect, but also make sense?
That's a great question, and man, I wish I had a knee-jerk solution off the top of my head. I'd probably getting paid a lot more if I did.
I think so. I think you would if you did. I think you should come up with that answer, and then write a book and sell it.
Yes,
you would just be.
Can I get an endorsement?
I would definitely. If you come up with a solution for that, I think Dave and I would both endorse you. I don't know, Dave. What do you think? You think there is a way to do that with large organizations? I mean, you were this CISO for a massive organization. How did you try to help implement policies that made sense but weren't just ridiculous, stupid things that
I think it really comes to position. If you look at where the chief security officer role has traditionally been, it's most likely almost always falls under IT, which works for some organizations. For most, it doesn't. And normally, the CISO has been someone that's been more of a business centric person. And when a company can rely on the security team and trust the security team, I think a lot of that policy and a lot of that direction of where you need to head from as an organization comes really from that security team itself. So, when you look at most failures, I guess, in security, it really comes down to when, someone, an organization doesn't have that trust and direction inside of security, and they're always struggling and battling to get things implemented and done. But more so, when you deal with executives, aren't supposed to be security experts. They're not supposed to understand security. They're supposed to rely off of your security team to do that. So I think, when it comes down to it, it really is a matter of making sure that security is positioned well enough so that the executives feel confident enough to, lean on security for those policies and make sure that they're done appropriately. And that, if an executive says, hey, I want to block all social media, what do you folks think over here? And it's more so of a discussion point than it is a demand. I think that's when security becomes really successful.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I've actually seen great companies have really bad security because they spend so much time talking and trying to come up with the policy as opposed to just getting some action.
Yeah. And it was just business in general, I think.
Yeah. No, that is. It's unfortunate, but it is the way I see things go at times. Yeah.
Well, and just remember, anytime you're post-crisis, you're post-breach, people are going to be really reactive in the kinds of things that they want to implement. And so they want to lock all the doors immediately without considering, that people do have to go in and out those doors. So I think that's the other thing that you're dealing with is the emotional factor when reputations are on the line and when your profit is down because people are afraid to use your services or use your business because of this breach.
So overall, if you had three major takeaways, and I'm sure there's a lot more than that, but three major takeaways pre-breach, what would it be? What could you have done better?
So knowing what we've got, knowing, how, what our organization looks like, what is that digital footprint and what are we doing? What do we need to put in the safe? Understanding how our security is going to be moving forward and how it's not a destination and how it's a process. Too often, we'd see, okay, we're going to do the security project. And then it was, boom, everyone forgets about the care and feeding, project ends and all of a sudden care and feeding happens. Make sure that your security program is well communicated and well known to, first of all, your internal employees. We had people coming out of the woodwork just like, well, what do I do now? What do I do now? What do I do now? And it's just like, first of all, me personally, I'm just like, well, this is stuff you should already know, but I can't be that guy at work, but it's like making sure that, everyone is aware of what's going on. And then I'd say, let's see, a third takeaway in a pre-breach environment. This is more of me preaching to my executive management because, now they've seen how well it works, but listen and trust your security people. All my peers, we do it because we love security, and so when we're talking about things and we're pushing issues and we're getting very passionate and animated and sometimes a little insane about it, it's not because we're just actually insane all the time. It's just, it's because we're passionate and trust those people. Make sure that you have that team, trust your team. Your team is there to do security. Your team is there to help you. Your team is there to protect the organization. Listen to them. Please listen to your security people.
That's
great.
It is. Words of wisdom. We ask all of our guests if they have a book or books that they like to recommend. So is there anything, even if it's not about this topic, but is there any book that you've read that you're like, hey, I'd like, this is good for your listeners?
So being the kind of the tech geeky guy, I mean, my books are all a web application hacker's handbook. And, I mean, I think I even have a copy of that social engineering book somewhere on.
No, I heard that was okay.
I heard that was a bit of a tough read, but I got to tell you, so. Things that I would recommend: one, if you haven't read it, read Snow Crash. It's by far it's one book I read every year just because I'm obsessed with it. And two, if you're young and you want to see a movie that you probably haven't seen that got me into doing what I do, go watch Sneakers with Robert Redford. Just great, brilliant security movie.
Still the best hacker movie ever, isn't it?
Oh my God, yes, please, of course.
I love Sneakers, man. Sneakers is wonderful.
I mean, it really is. It still is. Like they haven't been able to do what they did in Sneakers since then. I mean, every hacker movie after that just was way too dramatized bull, and they haven't been able to reproduce what they did there.
Yes, indeed. That is a classic that will never die.
I'm with you.
You mean Black Cat not become a classic that doesn't die?
It's what's hilarious about that is I know a group of us were going to go see that, and then somebody canceled on us because they're like, yeah, dude, the reviews suck, so we're not going to go see it. We're going to go drink instead. It's like, oh, well, that sounds about right. Okay.
I haven't seen it, of course, and I've only read the reviews, and people that know anything about hacking are definitely not saying a ton of great things about it. So
I just can't take myself to go and see it. I don't know. I saw American Sniper instead, and I came out feeling like a patriot, and then after that, I was I can't see myself to go see Black Hat. It's like the Scorpion TV show. Have anybody seen that?
I read one. So I haven't seen it, and I read the synopsis for the first episode, and I was like, really, like something about like an airplane has special code on it, and
oh yeah, dude, he was driving a Ferrari because it was, or a Lamborghini or something, because it's the only one that can go as fast as an airplane. So he's driving a Lamborghini, hooking up a serial port that can only do like 28 modem to go back and forth between it. Hooks a cable up to a flying airplane while he's driving Lamborghini in order to sync it up and push the new code in.
That's awesome. Now I have to say, I've done this for my jobs before, that exact scenario. I at my last job with Michelle, I was driving a Ferrari and she was leaning out the window, plugging a serial cable into a plane.
While it was flying.
While it was flying, yeah. It was right overhead on the runway. We only had like that 1.5 mile stretch for the runway, so it was really tense. And at the end, we had some really cool catchphrase that we said to each other.
I've really tried so hard because I liked a couple of the characters in there that seemed kind of likable. But like every time they go and do something, I'm like, listen, I can't do it. I'm sorry. I have to break up with you.
Yeah, that's a shame. That's a shame. They tried a couple times with shows that involved hacking, and they haven't ever accomplished what Sneakers has done. Ever.
Nope.
Well, Bruce, Jeff, Joe, Bob, whatever we're calling you this 5 minutes. I will say honestly that this has got to be one of my favorites. So one of my favorites.
Me too. I was just thinking that probably one of my favorite podcasts.
It's for us, because, and I know we couldn't talk about all the details and everything, but this is such an important topic, and to have someone that lived through it, it's like kind of like talking to a survivor of some major incident. There's just, you're gonna get the tips from how to actually survive the incident way better from someone who was in it than just some guy who read a news story. So your time and effort and the risk of coming on here and talking about it is greatly appreciated.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks. It's one of those topics, I've personally gone through it and everything like that. But I think in the security community, we like to share and everything like that. And I just, it's a good opportunity to be able to actually talk about this. I just wish these kind of topics could be a little bit more forthright and a little bit more open about it. I understand that there's all sorts of money in politics and legal proceedings and everything that kind of tie our hands on this kind of thing. But this is sharing the information can only help. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. It's just something you have to be aware of.
Well, thank you again. And
hopefully we'll see you at DEF CON, right?
Absolutely, I will be there.
Awesome.
We'll see you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Whew, guys, I don't know about you, but I think that's going to be one of my top favorite podcasts so far.
I agree. It's funny. Like, I was actually going through it, and just the experience alone of something real world and having to go through it and kind of presenting that experience out and what to expect and kind of how to position it, and just confirming a lot of what we expect to happen. Because when breaches like that happen, most people can't talk about it at all, like in any capacity, because it's such a sensitive subject. And just to have somebody on to be able to walk through that was amazing.
It is. Yeah, I really agree with that.
Plus, complimented me twice, by the way, on that podcast. So I like that even better.
This day, I don't know what it is. Dave, you said nice things about the book, and then I said nice things about you, and I don't know what's happening.
I haven't said nice things about anyone.
That's true.
So that we're clear.
That's true. Michelle has not been nice to me in months. I can't remember the last time Michelle was nice to me.
Well, good news is, we had a very good podcast. It was one of the best podcasts, and Ping was not here.
No.
What'd I say?
You're going to get a girl beat down this summer.
Man.
I'm just saying.
Oh, why I tell you. Oh.
I'm doing the dance right now with the big baggy pants on. Hang on.
Wait, is that MC Hammer? Oh, I was thinking it was the original Rick James version.
Oh, no. It was the 80s MC Hammer.
No, we're not that old, Michelle. Come on.
I am. I recall this clearly.
All I have to say is I can sing the whole Vanilla Ice Go Ninja Go from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Part 2, The Secret of the Ooze. So I may do that next time.
Oh.
Ninja.
No, it's we believe you. We really do.
Okay, sorry.
No, we believe you. Guys, well, before we get any deeper into this, keep in mind, if you'd like to follow us on Twitter, it's Human Hacker or SOC Engineer Inc. Our website's social-engineer.com and social-engineer.org.
And I'm Hacking Dave.
And he is Hacking Dave on Twitter. Or you could just type in Dave Kennedy and you'll be awarded with the billions of videos of him on the news talking.
Which, by the way, you've been doing an amazing job on the news as well, I must say.
Thank you. I learned it from watching you.
Much better from the first instance.
Well, that is for sure. Being the first instance being Fox News out in Vegas. Yeah, definitely feeling more comfortable than you taking me to some abandoned warehouse with Ear Fungus Boy. So,
yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, guys, until next month. We'll see you.
Number 66.
Number 66. See ya.
Signing out.
Let the larger draw collider. The more you see, the less you understand. The atmosphere's getting volatile. Waiting on the corner for the Swiss guard to arrive. And when they